What's going on, guys? Welcome to the NBA season preview here at Phantom Sports. Today I'm going to be joined by host of the Hoop Culture podcast, Jayden Simmons, as we go through all 30 NBA teams, look at their offseason, key additions, key losses, draft picks, where they were last year compared to where we think they're going to be this year, and expectations. I'm going to put each team's timestamp in the description below, so if you only want to watch one or two of your favorite teams, feel free to go down there and skip along to where your team is. And if you're new to this channel, be sure to do me 3 favors. Hit that like button, that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. If you're a sports fan, I'm confident you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel. We always upload daily sports content. And without further ado, let's get into these previews. Alrighty, Jayden, welcome in. It's good to have you. Good to not be doing this by myself.
I appreciate you, man. Always good to hang out and talk some hoops with you.
Absolutely. Now, we were going to have Dakota join, but he was having some internet problems, so he is going to be unable to make it tonight. So we got the duty here. I think we're just going to kick it off in the Eastern Conference, and I think we'll go from the bottom to the top, and that starts us off with the Pistons. Jayden, what do we got in store for the Pistons this season?
Yeah, man. The Pistons had a very, very interesting offseason. Of course, we all know that they were bottom of the barrel last year, lost 27 straight games at one point, but it all started in the offseason with them firing their head coach, Monty Williams. So that, they're bringing in a new regime, got a new GM as well, and got some new players in. They signed Tobias Harris to a 2-year deal in the offseason. They brought in Tim Hardaway Jr. in a trade. They still had Simone Fontecchio that they added at the deadline. They signed Malik Beasley. So a lot of vets to bring in to the team. Also Paul Reed, who I love. They brought in a lot of vets. They already have a young core with Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Osar Thompson. And honestly, even though this is a team that's still very young, I think the veteran presence is going to raise their ceiling up just a little bit. I do think that they're probably still going to be on the outside of the playoffs, but best case scenario for this team, I can see them sneaking into a 9 or a 10 and fighting for a play-in spot. By no means do I think they're going to be some great team. A lot of eyes are going to be on Ron Holland, who they added in the draft, but I think this is a year where they can actually start to take that next level from garbage to mediocrity. So
yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what they do for sure. Only way is up from here for them.
Definitely
can't get any worse than what they did, really. But one team that could do a little bit worse is the next team up, the Wizards, who I only had one more win than them. They were 15-67, and I believe they were the ones to lose to snap that Pistons streak. Am I right?
Yeah,
I think that's. And they fired Wes Unseld Jr. midseason, right? I think, and I saw a thing. They went 8-31 after they fired him, so they didn't do very good. But I do know that they kind of restacked a little bit. Not like insane. They lost Tyus Jones and they waived Landry Shamet, which those are probably not the biggest losses in the grand scheme of things. And they added Sadiq Bey and Malcolm Brogdon and Jonas Valanciunas. So they added a couple of good pieces. I think they added better than what they lost. Personally, I'm not super familiar with any of the picks they picked, like the draft picks they had, like Alex Sarr, number 2 overall. Not super familiar with him, but number 2 pick shouldn't be horrible, hopefully. So I'm hoping that they actually, end in that like play-in range towards the end of the season. I think that they could do that. The big thing is Jordan Poole going to be able to play a quality level of basketball this season? I think he can do it. I know he can do it. And I'm hopeful that he does this season. He turns it around. I hope he gets over whatever's been keeping him from this whole Warriors debacle still haunting him. So
yeah, for sure. And that brings us up to the Charlotte Hornets next, which they didn't really have an offseason full of acquisitions, but I think this is a really big developmental year for the Hornets. I am a firm believer in their young core. LaMelo Ball is still, one of the most electrifying young players in the league. Brandon Miller looked really, really impressive towards the end of last season. I think that he's ready to break out as well with another year of tutelage. they bring back Miles Bridges. They bring back Mark Williams. They drafted, I believe his name is Tahan Salawan at number 6, who's at a position of need for them at the power forward. So I don't know how much he plays or what their scheme looks like, but not really a lot of new faces in Charlotte, just, a year of development. And I think that development is going to do well for them. As long as LaMelo Ball is healthy, I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be hovering around the 40 win range. Always depends on his health. But I think that the Hornets are going to be a solid team. I see them as a play-in team this year.
Absolutely. Speaking of LaMelo, did you see the insane back tat he got in this offseason? I think it was a back. I think he got a full back tat. Maybe it was a different player, but I thought it was LaMelo. Mm-hmm. And I heard they had to put him to sleep, anesthesia him up because it was just an insane amount. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but next up on the docket we got the Raptors, who I feel like they had a really good season 2 years ago where they were super uber competitive. They were right there, but then last season they finished 2-19, which was not very good. They were able to re-sign Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, which is big for them. They were able to get Davion Mitchell, which hopefully should help on the perimeter as well. They did lose Jalen McDaniels in the trade for Davion Mitchell, and then Gary Trent Jr. So they added a couple pieces, lost a couple pieces. I think this is all dependent on Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. If they can actually play quality basketball this year at a high level for a long period of time, most of the season, they absolutely can be in that contention for the 7-8 seed.
Well, Siakam's in Indiana. Remember the trade they did from
oh my gosh, you're
the deadline.
Right. You're right. He is. So if Scotty Barnes can play properly, I totally forgot about that trade.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought he was still in. Anyways.
Hey, it happens, man.
We're cutting that out. Not really, but. Yeah. So if Scotty Barnes can play at a high level, I still think they can compete.
Yeah. All eyes on my man RJ too. Long live my first Knicks jersey, RJ Barrett.
We'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah. And speaking of New York, the next team on the docket is the crosstown rivals, the Brooklyn Nets, which they were the 11th seed last year. I predict they're going to finish much, much, much lower this year. And that's mainly because of the moves that they made this offseason, which weren't bad moves, but of course they traded Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks in a trade package that got them Bojan Bogdanovic, 4 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. Then they also made a trade with the Rockets to get back the picks that they initially traded in the Harden deal. So a lot of moves this offseason to set the Nets up for the future and investing in their draft capital. And this is the year of Cam Thomas in Brooklyn. He's really going to take the keys. I can see him being a very good number 1 option for them, really good scorer. And I think that he's going to have a good season, but I have the Nets penciled in to probably be the second worst team in the conference. And, that's intentional. They're going to be in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. And, it's a really loaded draft class, even if they don't get Cooper Flag. So I think that the Nets are setting themselves up for the future with this one.
Yeah, you talking about the draft class this year. I don't know too much about college basketball, but I do know one thing that I'm thinking about making it an even more stacked class by declaring myself. So, Warriors, if you're listening, I will work for give me $10 an hour, and I'll do it. But we are gonna move on to the Hawks. Now, the Hawks, they were 36-46 last year. Not a very good run for them. Granted, your star player in Trae Young missed 28 games, I believe. Mm-hmm. So that never helps. But you had the number 1 pick, so you got Zachary Reese Shea. And that just shows how much I don't pay attention to college. I need to. You added Larry Nance Jr., which I don't know how old he is, but it could be a good pickup. I know he was decent back on the old Cavs days with LeBron. But what you lost is much outweighs it. You lost Sadiq Bey, you lost DeJounte Murray, and then you lost guys like Bruno Fernando, AJ Griffin, EJ Liddell. But that Sadiq Bey and DeJounte Murray is a big hit for you. Even getting Reese Shea, I expect these guys to not have the best season again this year. I expect them to also be in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So we'll see. I mean, you have Trae Young. He can always just turn it on and light it up. But missing 28 games is a big amount. Yeah. So we'll see if he can bounce back. I'd like for him to. I'm cheering for him, rooting for him, but we'll see.
For sure. Up next, you have the Chicago Bulls, who found themselves in the play-in tournament last year with a 39-43 record. It's kind of a transition period for the Bulls. You know, they traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. They traded DeMar DeRozan to the Kings. I'm not even familiar what they got in that package. I know Chris Duarte was one of the pieces, but you know, wasn't really like a valuable trade asset that they got. And you know, it's that season of what are we going to do? It's a contract year for Josh Giddey, so they're probably going to trust him a lot with the ball and see how he plays. Big question mark on if Zach LaVine gets traded at some point during the season. Of course, you still had Kobe White break out this year, almost win the Most Improved Player award. You still have some good young guys. I know that they brought in Jalen Smith, I believe, in free agency. I think he's going to, be competing with Patrick Williams for some starting minutes. You still have Vucevic. He could end up getting traded. Lonzo Ball's coming back from injury this year. So it's kind of like a collection of guys out in Chicago. And to me, a collection of guys seems like a recipe for a play-in tournament spot again. Could depend on if they make those trades halfway through the year. I expect them to be some sellers, but the Bulls never really do what people expect them to do. So if they ride it out, I'm thinking another year of around 37 wins and a play-in spot for them.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm going to say that a lot, but the Bulls, when you hit the head on the nail there. With you just put a group of guys together, it's not usually championship caliber.
Right.
Excuse me. Next on the docket is the Heat. Now, 62 combined games missed from Jimmy Butler and Tyler Herro last season.
Man.
Does not spell a good quality season. You still made the playoffs, or made the play-in, made the first round. You got taken out by the eventual champion Celtics. So it's not nothing to like write home about, but it's nothing to hold your head down about. I don't even care who they got, who they lost. The big thing is, can you keep Jimmy Butler? What is going to happen there? There's been rumors flying left and right all season. Jimmy Butler to LA, Jimmy Butler to Golden State, Jimmy Butler to name any team. So if they can't keep Jimmy, this season's going to be just an absolute wash, depending on what they get for him. But I don't see them getting enough to make it worth it, in my opinion, especially if they get a healthy Jimmy. So if they keep Jimmy, great. That's awesome. They can still be a playoff caliber team. Absolutely. You re-signed Bam. Kevin Love's getting old, but he still can produce when he needs to. So it's a good team. You just need Jimmy and Tyler to be healthy.
Yeah. And speaking of health, up next we have the Philadelphia 76ers. And
oh man.
They made a splash in free agency. They bring in Paul George, they bring in Eric Gordon, they bring in Caleb Martin, they bring in Andre Drummond, they draft Jared McCain. Like, they had a pretty good offseason. But health is the thing that is going to decide their season. You have Joel Embiid, who played less than 40 games last year. You have Paul George, who's constantly been battling injury issues. And then you have a pretty old bench, led by Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, which, you don't really want to put too much stock in guys that are over 34 years old. And then, with those additions, you did lose out on guys. You lost out on Tobias Harris, which, I guess they were trying to get rid of him anyway, so that could be addition by subtraction. You lost Cameron Payne, who played a pivotal role in the playoffs as a bench shooter, and you also lost Buddy Hield, one of the best perimeter shooters over the past 5 years. So I think that the Sixers, on paper, definitely improved. I think that best case scenario, they could be a top 3 seed. But again, if health plays a factor, they could easily be anywhere between the 6 to 10 range. Just all depends. And you're putting a lot of stock in paying a 35-year-old Paul George on a 4-year contract, but I'm not a GM, so we'll see if Daryl Morey gets the product that he was looking for.
Yeah. Sixth in the East last year were the Indiana Pacers, winners, I believe. No, runner-ups of the in-season tournament. I forgot the Lakers one. Stupid Lakers. This, just looking at their offseason, this Pacers team is deep.
Yeah.
I didn't realize just how deep this team is. You actually have Pascal Siakam on this team. He's on this team. Obviously, you've got Halliburton. You re-signed Obi Toppin. You added James Wiseman, who I think did not get a full chance in Golden State. Didn't do the best in Detroit either, but I think he's got talent there if you can just use him right. James Johnson, Nembhard. This team is good.
Miles Turner.
I think, Miles Turner, right? I totally forgot about him too. So I think this team absolutely could be top 5 seed with a full team, full season, everything like that. I could see them easily getting better, cracking the top 5.
For sure. And, another young team that could do the same thing is what they did last year is the Orlando Magic, who are up at 5. I'm actually a big fan of the Orlando Magic's roster makeup. You have a bunch of young guys that play very well together, with Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. That as your core 3, they have a good versatility on offense and defense, with Suggs being an all-defensive guy. But the big move for them this offseason was bringing in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who is a proven winner, proven scrappy defender. I mean, he won titles with the Lakers, won titles with the Nuggets, and he's a major get in a competitive Eastern Conference. I mean, KCP's not a star guy by any means, but he's a guy that you trust to defend a Jaylen Brown, a guy that you trust to throw at a Donovan Mitchell, a guy that you throw at a Tyrese Halliburton to throw them off of their game. And I mean, if you have Jalen Suggs already playing all NBA caliber defense, throwing him in the backcourt with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, having some switches with Paolo Banchero, it's a recipe for success. And much like the Pacers, they have a really deep bench as well. They still have Mo Wagner, Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, Gary Harris. The names go on and on. I think that the Magic are a team that's set up for success, not just this year, but well into the future. And I think, best case scenario, they could be a top 4 seed. I don't see them going any lower than 6, though. I think this is a solid playoff team that's going to continue to be a playoff team.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is now we're getting into those top 4 teams, those top 5 teams, where it's kind of you got to stack them up against each other and say, can this team do better than this team?
Right.
And one of those teams is the Cavs, who, for some reason, even though they had injury after injury to notable players, they still were able to scrape 48 wins and secure the 4 seed in the playoffs. They didn't really make any moves, really. Besides their coach, they fired J.B. Bickerstaff, added Kenny Atkinson. You re-signed Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. So they didn't really do much. They only had 1 pick, and that was Jalen Tyson with the 20 overall. So I can expect a similar season. Maybe even 4 or 5 more games in the win column if they can stay a little healthier. But I don't see any reason, unless Kenny Atkinson just totally screws it all up or something and they fall off a cliff or something. But if they just play how they did last year, I don't see why they don't at least get back into the top 5.
Yeah, for sure. Another consistent name that's been in the top 5 for the last 6 years now is the Milwaukee Bucks, led by who I think is the best player in the world still, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But, this Bucks team, it's not the Bucks team from 2021. It's not the Bucks team from 2023. Yes, you have a Damian Lillard who's a great proven co-star. But outside of that, you have an aging Brook Lopez, you have an injury-prone Chris Middleton, you have Bobby Portis, that's my guy. I love Bobby Portis. And then you look at the additions that they made in the offseason. You bring in Gary Trent Jr., who, yes, when he's on, but he's a very streaky player. You bring in DeLon Wright to be a backup point guard, but that's all he is a backup point guard. I don't see how, you're raising the ceiling of this team and surrounding them for the success that you need to surround a prime best player in the world in Giannis. Not to mention the fact that you still have Doc Rivers as your head coach, who has been unproven for a decade at this point and notorious for choking in the playoffs. So I'm not sold on the Bucks this year. Of course, they're going to be a playoff team. I think that best case scenario, they're a 3 seed. Worst case scenario, I can see them in the play-in tournament. I think that realistically, they're going to be in that 5 to 7 range, and it's going to be a tough ride for the Bucks this year. I'm hoping for the best, though. I really want a bounce-back year for Damian Lillard, too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be – that's more likely than not going to be a disappointing season for Bucks fans. Not what you're going to want, and hopefully they can figure it out in the next year before Giannis decides sayonara.
Right.
And he heads over to the Bay.
The Bay, okay.
Next up, we got the New York Knicks, who I think are going to be bottom team in the Eastern Conference. They didn't add anyone of significance. They don't have any star power. I don't really feel like even talking about these guys, so I'm just going to pass this off to you, Jayden. Who's your team again?
I'm a great fan of the New York Knicks, man.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and take it.
All right, man. My Knicks fans, I'm going to just preface this by saying this. I'm 23 years old. I have seen the Knicks in the playoffs in my lifetime 4 times. I have never once in my lifetime during a preseason felt as confident in a Knicks team to be a contender than I have right now. And here's why. Of course, we're going to look back on the January Knicks with Julius Randle and Isaiah Hartenstein, and right after we traded for OG and we went on a crazy 20-3 winning streak. We're going to look back on that as a what if. But I just hope that we're not only looking back on it as a what if. And here's why. Of course, we hit the offseason after losing in the second round in 7 to the Pacers. Very injury-riddled team, very banged up. And Leon Rose said, I'm not satisfied. We're going all in. And then he trades Bojan Bogdanovic and potentially 6 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. That's a lot to give up for Mikal Bridges, but Mikal Bridges has chemistry with the Nova boys, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart. But he said I wasn't done there. He decided just a week ago to send out a long-time love-hate relationship that I had, but ultimately a guy that I'm going to always respect, and Julius Randle, alongside Dante DiVincenzo, to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Karl Anthony Towns. Whoa. We went from having a playoff run of Jalen Brunson pretty much being by himself and trying to slay giants to now having a starting lineup of Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns. In my lifetime, I've never seen the New York Knicks play basketball with a stretch 5 like Karl Anthony Towns before. So it's going to look crazy on the court, especially when you have Jalen Brunson, who gets most of his offense in the paint, having pretty much 4 shooters around him. Now, of course, we do have some contingencies. Injury is a big one with any Tom Thibodeau-led team. Karl Anthony Towns is an injury-prone player. OG Anunoby is an injury-prone player. Mitchell Robinson is currently injured and is an injury-prone player. So hoping for health. And then the other thing to look at is our bench, which, our depth was something that we prided ourselves on. But we still got some guys on the bench that I trust, like Deuce McBride, Cam Payne, Precious Achiuwa. It's going to be interesting to say the least. I think and it's hard to say this with confidence and not come off as biased. I think best case scenario, if this team is healthy into the playoffs, that we can win a championship. Realistically, I think that we're going to finish with the 2 seed. I'm expecting no less than an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. But I think that if everything goes right, the New York Knicks can be a championship team.
It's a little different than what I was saying earlier, but
just a tad bit.
It's just a tad different. No, I agree with everything you said. Deuce McBride is a dog. I like him a lot.
Yes, sir.
He's good. He's going to be good for you guys. And that leaves us in the Eastern Conference with your defending champion, Boston Celtics. They didn't really do much. They focused more on signing guys, like re-signing guys. Like they got Jason Tatum, Derek White, Xavier Tillman, Sam Hauser. They did add Lonnie Walker the fourth, who decides to play in fourth quarters specifically. You didn't lose anyone really that impactful, so they're going to be dominant again. Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis. The big thing is going to be Kristaps Porzingis' health. Can he stay healthy all season, or just most of the season? I know nowadays it's hard for a player to stay healthy. All season, it's everyone's kind of getting a little bit of boo-boo syndrome nowadays, and there's not much you can say. It's kind of like the Chiefs. It's like they are always good. They finally cashed in and won one this year, but like they've been good the last like 4 years. So I don't see anything being different this year, barring obviously any major injuries. But yeah, there's not much else to really say about the Celtics. I think they're going to be another 60-win team this season. They're going to be East championship or bust again, I think. But I think that there are a couple of teams that could threaten them, like the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals or sooner if they face them. But yeah, that's the Eastern Conference there. Let's hop over to the Western Conference, and we will start back down at the bottom with the Portland TrailBlazers. Jayden.
Man, quick moment of silence for Dakota and the rest of the Portland TrailBlazers fans this season.
It's going to be a hard one.
It really is. And, it's interesting because much like I consider the Blazers to kind of be in the same position as the Chicago Bulls, where you have just kind of like a collection of players that are waiting to be moved. You do have a good young core with Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and then the number 7 overall draft pick, Donovan Clingan, who I think is going to be really, really good for them. But you also have guys like Jeremy Grant, who's waiting to be moved. You have DeAndre Ayton, who is probably going to be moved. You have Anthony Simons, who, even though he's really, really talented, is probably going to be moved. Their big acquisition of the offseason was trading for Denny Advia, which I believe is a really, really good asset to get for an aging Malcolm Brogdon. Advia is still like in his early or mid 20s. He's had a really good season on both sides of the basketball. Really showed like aggressiveness and scoring. And I think Chauncey Billups said today that he thinks that Advia is the best player on the team as of right now. So I think that he's going to be a good part of that core. But realistically, it's going to be a down year for the Blazers, especially in a year where multiple Western teams, like I honestly think that 13 teams in the West are trying to make the playoffs. So that by default leaves the Blazers at like the 14 or 15 slot. And I mean, that's fine. You got a loaded draft class. Like I said, what better way to, add to a young core than to go get a guy like Cooper Flagg? So won't be all bad in the Rose Garden.
Oh, it could be. But what won't be bad or as bad is the San Antonio Spurs. I know that they added just a bunch of old guys. So they wanted to really up their overall age on the team, and they went and added Harrison Barnes and CP0 rings himself, Chris Paul. They also did draft Stephon Castle, so I think there's a very good chance that the Spurs have 2 straight Rookie of the Years.
Mm-hmm.
Stephon Castle's going to have a great season, and I think. And then obviously you've got Victor Wembanyama, so you're going to hopefully start to win games. All credit to Chris Paul. He's a great facilitator of the ball. Doesn't turn it over a crazy amount. He did pretty good with the Warriors last year when you had a proficient scorer in Curry that could take away the scoring duties from Chris Paul and let Chris Paul really cook with moving the ball around, working with the younger guys, doing that kind of stuff. So I do think that they're going to improve. I could see them going from 22 wins up to maybe like 35, 40 potentially. That'd put them right around that 10, 11, 12 seed range. Definitely better than the 14 seed. So I think they can improve, and they can just keep getting better from there. They just got to keep adding pieces.
I'm happy that you used the word improve so many times there, because the team that's going to improve the most, whether anybody predicts it or not, is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, you had a team that finished 13th a year after being the 2 seed, and that was just mainly due to the fact that their entire core got hurt. Ja Morant first serving a 25-game suspension, then he comes back and he's absolutely dominating, and then he gets injured and his season's over. You had Jaren Jackson go through a couple of injuries. Marcus Smart dealt with a couple of injuries. But now we're reloaded. Now we have a Grizzlies team that is actually going to be sending real players out there. You have a fully healthy Ja Morant, which I think that people are forgetting how good Ja Morant is. When Ja Morant was, a top 10 player, arguably, when the Grizzlies were the 2 seed, he's going to be back, and he's going to remind people who he is. Then, of course, you have, Marcus Smart, tenacious defender. You have Desmond Bain still. You have Jaren Jackson. And you have what I think could be a sleeper Rookie of the Year pick with Zach Edey, who we've already seen it in preseason. Ja Morant and Zach Edey pick and roll is a very scary sight because you don't really know who to guard at that point.
Yeah, either of them are going to dunk on you.
Right. But what I like the most about the Grizzlies is their bench unit, and I feel like not a lot of people are, talking about it. You got guys who stepped into a bigger role last year when everyone was hurt and proved that, hey, we're legitimate guys. You got guys like Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams Jr., Santi Aldama. You have so many guys on that bench, Luke Kennard as well. So many guys on that bench that can come in and fill in for anyone at any given point. And I think that the Grizzlies are going to have a really, really good season. My hottest take is I think that they can be the 2 seed in the West again.
Okay.
I expect really good things from the Grizzlies, and if everyone stays healthy, they're going to be a really, really tough team to play.
All right. Wow. Okay, that's a big bold take from you there. So you also mentioned improve, and that leads me to the next team, which is kind of the opposite of improve, in the Utah Jazz. It's not quite at the opposite. They didn't really add much. They didn't lose much. I think they're going to coast. They didn't get rid of Lauri Markkanen like we all thought was going to happen. It was like the Cold War days when it was like, oh, the nuclear's going to get launched any second. But it never did. And so they got Lauri Markkanen still. You still got Jordan Clarkson. They're a good team. I'm just playing around. They're a good team. They're going to be fine. I think they'll compete. I think they'll stay around where they were. I could see them getting as high as like the 9-10 seed if they can string together a few more wins than what they had. I think they had 31 last year. I think they could get up to 40 as well. Lauri Markkanen's huge. That's big for them. Keeping him. If you can just add around him, I think they've done a good job. Like Jordan Clarkson, I like him a lot. Mm-hmm. And then they did draft Kyle Filipowski. I don't know if he's going to see much of the floor, but he was good at Duke from what I saw.
Yeah,
he was a pretty good scorer. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens there with him. It's not going to be like the Jazz, the Donovan Mitchell Jazz. I don't think quite to that extent, but I think they can definitely. There is definitely going to be a little bit of improvement with the Jazz as well.
If there's one team that is almost impossible to predict, it's the Houston Rockets. You know, they're coming off a season where they went 41-41. You have you did admittedly get some improvements in terms of the offseason. You didn't really add anyone in free agency, but you spent the third pick and drafted Reed Shepherd. And Reed Shepherd is obviously a guy that the NBA has faith in. I mean, with the GM poll that dropped today, over 50% of GMs expect him to be Rookie of the Year, and over 50% of GMs expect him to be the best player from this draft class in 5 years. And I mean, that's what happens when you get a guy that's a proven 40% three-point shooter. But I'm just concerned about the makeup of their roster. It's kind of a similar issue with Portland, where you have a collection of players, except for like these players are actually good and they could like compete with each other for minutes. You have Fred VanVleet and Amon Thompson, who both have proven themselves as being capable point guards. You have Jalen Green and Reed Shepherd that are going to be battling each other for shooting guard minutes. You have Dylan Brooks and Cam Whitmore battling each other for small forward minutes. Jabari Smith and Tari Eason battling for power forward minutes. Then you got Şengün and Steven Adams battling for center minutes. It's like you have the depth, but it's like, is the depth really worth it when your backups are almost as good as your starters? I don't know. But you know, they do have Ime Udoka, who's a proven great coach, and I think he can make the most out of this team. I think that they finally make that push and get into the play-in next year. With as deep as the West is, it's hard to tell, but I think they can get over that hump. It just really all depends on what lineups they're sending out there together.
Yeah. Speaking of getting over the hump, you have the next team on the list. Number 10 last season, 46-36. Golden State Warriors. Okay. Now, I don't know if you guys could know this at all, but I do happen to cheer for the Warriors.
Really?
On my free time, yes. There's got my little Steph Curry Funko Pop right here. But I think that this team can absolutely, and this is going to also sound biased, but I do think this team can win Ring 5. I do think this team can win Ring 5. Hear me out.
Okay.
You lose Clay. That sucks. Yes. The nostalgia in me cried for 3 days. But I think it was the right move at the end of the day. As much as it pained me, he was getting a little older. He wasn't completely the same after coming back from his injuries. And his shooting was off. But you've got so much absolute talent on that roster. You still have Draymond Green, who I think is still a top-tier defender in the league when he wants to actually play by the rules and not choke out or punch or kick or anything like that. When he wants to play by the rules, he is 100% a top-tier defender. He will, at his size, he can still lock down most centers in this league. You've got Trace Jackson-Davis. We actually have a solid actual center, big, tall center that we can play at center, who played really well last season in the minutes he got. Reports coming out of camp and preseason is that Andrew Wiggins looks really good. He's looking more like the 2022 Finals Wiggins than 2023 Wiggins. You've got Jonathan Kuminga, who I think is a candidate for Most Improved Player of the Year. I think you've got Moses Moody, who could be a starter on half the teams in this league potentially, but he doesn't even see the court sometimes. I'll lower that from half the teams. There's a lot of teams though that he could be a very big role. I'll say half the teams he'd be a good role player. Like he'd get minutes, but he doesn't see the court. And I think that is partly because of Steve Kerr and his coaching, and I disagree with that part. A lot of us Warriors fans do. Moses Moody deserves to get some minutes at least. And then you've got Brandon Podziemski, who is a very good talent, good shooter of the ball, can take a charge like no one else. And then you've got the guys you added. You added Kyle Anderson, who's a good forward, talented. I think he could fill that Otto Porter Jr. role that Otto Porter had when he was on the Warriors. Could shoot it. I saw he worked on his shot a little bit. And then the big one for me is Buddy Hield. Now, it's Buddy Hield, whatever. Since 2020, Buddy Hield has had one of the top 2 3-point percentages across the league. He is, I think, first or second since 2020. The other one is Steph Curry. So now you have another pairing of 2 really high-quality shooters. And obviously you have Steph. Let's not forget that. You have Steph, who is still the greatest shooter. Yeah, exactly. Who's that? I still think he's the best shooter in the league right now. He's the greatest shooter of all time. No one can match what he does from the 3-point range. And really, he's in the paint too. He's a great finisher. And then you've got, you also had a De'Anthony Melton, who I think will be fine. You lost Chris Paul, which goodbye. Don't mean to be all against him or anything, but it is what it is there. And the only thing I think that'll hold this team up or like keep them from actually doing what they can do is health. If Steph's getting old, his ankles have always been a problem. If he can stay healthy, we're good. If Wiggins can play well, we're good. If Draymond can not choke someone out on the floor, we're good. I think this team absolutely can be in contention for Ring 5. I'm not going to say they're going to and be like, this is our year. But they can absolutely compete. It's a stacked West, but I think as long as you've got a Steph Curry on your team, you've got a shot to compete for anything, in my opinion. And I'm trying to be as least biased as possible. I know it probably came across very biased, but
yeah, no, it's a fair assessment, man. I don't know about championship hopes, but
that part might have been a little bit of a stretch. I'll admit. I'm just very hopeful, but I think they can at least very minimum be like the 6th seed and miss the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
Completely. I think they can actually make like a playoff spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And another team that I think fits that bill is the Sacramento Kings. Of course, I mentioned earlier with the Bulls, but they added DeMar DeRozan. That was their biggest offseason acquisition. And honestly, I think that kind of makes the Kings having one of the best top of the rosters in the league with De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, and Malik Monk. I think that the problem comes with the rest of the team, which is kind of up in the air. You used the lottery pick to get Devin Carter from Providence, which I'm a fan of his game, but it's kind of like a Davion Mitchell situation where you're getting another guy that plays the same position as the best player on your team. So how valuable is that really going to be for the future? But I think that the Kings are a team that, we know their identity. They're going to score the basketball. They're going to outrun you. They're going to have Sabonis getting triple doubles. It's going to be a team that's offense is, very, very high octane. The problem's going to come in the playoffs when it's time to defend, and that's what happens with the Kings every year. But I think that this is a year where the offense proves to be enough in the regular season. I think they're going to finish around that 4 to 5 range, and pretty much have an easy playoff spot.
Yeah, easy playoff spots are going to start getting hard to come by here on these last few teams, starting with the Pelicans. If it wasn't for Zion getting hurt with 4 minutes or whatever left in the fourth quarter, having a 40-point game, I think the Lakers would have been eliminated from the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They would have been goodbye baseball or basketball in this case. Zion needs to be healthy. Let's just get that out of the way. He needs to be healthy. He needs to play a full season. When he showed last year, when he plays, this is a completely different team. CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram. You added DeJounte Murray into it now. Please tell me CJ and Brandon are still on the team.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, please don't give me another Pascal Movin. So you've got the talent, obviously. Brandon Ingram has had some health issues too. CJ had some last season. So the only thing that's going to stop this team, in my personal opinion, is health. This team could be absolutely a top 4 seed in the Western Conference next season if they can be healthy. They did lose some key guys. They did lose some guys like Larry Nance, Jonas Valanciunas, Cody Zeller. So you did lose some decent role players, some talented guys. But, I mean, you didn't lose any of the big, very important ones. You added Daniel Theis, Javonte Green, and Jamal Cain as well. So it's kind of give and take. I think the additions to the losses outside of DeJounte Murray kind of balance out. And then you add DeJounte Murray in, and I think that'll help just kind of overall make the team a little bit more complete, I guess is the word.
Yeah, for sure. And, you touched on the play-in game. Let's talk about those Los Angeles Lakers, man.
I'm glad you're doing it, not me.
It's a really tough team to gauge. I mean, as is most years. You want to give them high expectations because at the end of the day, they still have LeBron James, they still have Anthony Davis, and as long as you have those two, there's no reason why you shouldn't be a playoff team. But you look at the rest of the team, and it's like, oh, it's okay. Like, D'Angelo Russell, he's decent. Austin Reeves is okay. He's solid, I guess. He's their clear third best player, in my opinion. Rui Hachimura, decent. The bench is like nothing to me. I mean, you have Dalton Connect, who you drafted at 17, who I'm really high on, and I think that he should earn his way into the rotation, leading that bench unit. But other than that, it's like I'm not moved by Jared Vanderbilt. I'm not moved by Cam Reddish. I'm not moved by Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Max Christie. Like it's like the Bulls. Matter of fact, the Lakers are if you take the Bulls and give them LeBron and AD and just tell them to go out there and do it. And it's like, okay, if you take one of the two off, it's no question not a playoff team. And like if the fact that you're relying on a 40-year-old, 41-year-old LeBron James to just get you to the 7th seed is embarrassing. Eventually, like I'm not going to say that Father Time's going to run its course because it's LeBron James. When he decides to walk away from basketball, it's genuinely going to be him getting bored. It's not going to be him falling off because at this point, I mean, what can he do? But yeah, best case scenario, a 7 seed. Worst case scenario, a 10 seed. They're going to be a play-in team. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. It's a waste. We're going to see so much media of LeBron and Bronny being on a court together, even though Bronny shouldn't be on a court right now. But yeah, the Lakers are just they're mediocre, and they're gonna stay mediocre.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to mention the best player on the Lakers there. You didn't. You got to him at the end, and Mr. Bronny James there. The way the media's been treating him.
And I love Bronny. I love his game. I love what he showed. Of course, coming off of having a cardiac arrest before your freshman year of college, that obviously has impacted the way that he plays. But it's like, the Rich Paul has said it was Bronny's decision to come out of the league or come out to play basketball and all of that. But I just can't help but feel like he could have taken another year and developed his game and actually gotten comfortable with playing college basketball. But, he's the James. He had a place in the league, so I don't blame him.
I do want to give a disclaimer. I poke fun about him a lot, and I like to make the jokes. But I do wish him the best. I hope that the name doesn't overbear him. I want to see him develop well enough to actually have a good career. I don't want to see his career get wasted out the get-go just for the media's sake. I hope the Lakers actually do right by him and actually let him develop and they coach him into being an NBA talent, because he absolutely can become an NBA talent. I really hope the Lakers don't fumble the bag there with that, just for the media coverage.
I agree.
But speaking of flop of the year, we're gonna hit the Phoenix Suns, who technically on paper they didn't really flop. They were 49-33, but when you look at what happened, it was a big flop. The expectations, let's just say, were way too much for this team. But you can kind of only expect that from a Kevin Durant-led team. I hate doing it, but they're not. It's not going to work. I don't think the big three is going to work. Kevin Durant is, by all means, he's still a very talented top player in the league, but I think he is starting to hit the tip of his career, if not already hit the tip of his career. Availability is going to be kind of iffy, I feel like, because he's going to be battling some stuff still. Devin Booker is going to be solid for you guys. And then Bradley Beal is... I'm trying to think about it. Bradley Beal is like Kirk Cousins if Kirk Cousins only ever played primetime games. I think that's a fair assessment. He, like, when he was healthy, he was okay. And there's nothing wrong with being okay, but not when you're getting paid big three type money.
Yeah.
When you're getting paid big three type money, A, you need to be available, which wasn't really happening. And B, when you are available, the very few times, you gotta, like, play well. And then you got Yusuf Nurkic, who just likes to talk crap apparently now. So I'm interested to see what happens here. Is Frank still coaching?
No, they got Mike Budenholzer.
Mike Budenholzer, that's right. So we'll see. I'm not gonna say no, because it's still three individually very, very talented guys. They've proven it before. And I mean, there's still another team on this list that I think had a rougher time with a big three, but this is a season where it's got to work, or you got to cut it before it gets too late.
For sure. And speaking of things that have worked, we got our defending Western Conference champions with the Dallas Mavericks, and a lot of people aren't really talking about the Mavericks, and it's confusing to me because you go to the NBA Finals, you lose in, I believe they lost in 5. It was either 5 or 6.
Yes, I think it was 5.
Yeah, I mean, you lose in 5. Luka didn't play his best. Kyrie didn't play his best, but you fixed a lot of the major issues with that team in just one offseason. I mean, you lose Derrick Jones Jr., which is a major blow to your defense. He was like a very talented perimeter defender, but you replace him very quickly. You get Najee Marshall from the Pelicans. You get Klay Thompson from the Warriors. You're gonna actually get a full season of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford because those were deadline deals. You add Quentin Grimes from the Pistons. It's like you really took that bench, which was full of guys that really shouldn't be getting playing time. No disrespect to the Maxi Klebers and the Dwight Powells, but it's like you actually replace those guys with actual quality NBA role players, and you give them a third star. I mean, I'm sure Klay Thompson at this stage in his career is less of a star and more of a 3-and-D wing, but that's exactly what you need for this team. Luka Doncic is very ball dominant. Kyrie Irving, we know how he plays. Putting somebody on the perimeter that can actually consistently hit down jumpers is exactly what this team needs. The rest of the West also got stronger, so I'm not comfortable with saying that, the Mavs are going to run through the West again, but I could definitely see, 3 seed, 4 seed for them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment for where they're going to end up this season. And next up, I'm going to try to do you right, Ilion. I'm going to try to do you okay. But the LA Clippers, The Clippers. The Clippers are exactly what they need to take to Kawhi Leonard's contract. Shred it up. Bye bye, sayonara. Not fully. If he doesn't do anything this season, then maybe think about it. But you need something out of him.
Yeah.
Especially after him backing out of the Team USA, hoping he's healthy. But how many games did he play last year? Do you know off the top of your head?
I want to say he played. Honestly, he didn't miss that many. I want to say he played 68 because he made an All-NBA team. He made an All-NBA team.
Oh, okay.
So,
maybe I'm a little off there. Maybe I'm thinking like 2022 Kawhi.
But he got injured at the end of the season, missed the entire playoff run. So
Okay, well, then I take it back a little bit. Maybe don't pull the Clippers to his contract yet. But this team, you lost Paul George to the Sixers. You lost Mason Plumlee. You lost Westbrook, who I think sometimes he really was the beating heart of this team.
He was.
He was the passion in this team. He was the drive in this team. He brought the energy. He was carrying this team from a morale standpoint, in my opinion, for a lot of the time. But you also add Mo Bamba. You add Batum, who's getting a little older, but he'd be a good role player. Derrick Jones Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., who I like a lot. I think that if you can get production out of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard again, and was it Norman Powell?
Yep.
I knew it was Powell. I just wanted to make sure I got the first name right. If you can get production out of those three guys and Man.
Yeah.
Man?
Yeah, Terrence Mann.
I'm not super familiar with the Clippers. Because we should have had Ilion on to do just the Clippers. And then I think this team is still going to make the playoffs. I could see them being right around the spot they're at, 4, 5, 6 area. 50-ish, 55 wins, in my opinion. I think if they could stay healthy. Kawhi played a good amount of the season last year. I want to see him do it again. And don't get me wrong, I love Kawhi. I like Kawhi. He's a funny guy. Board man gets paid. The laugh and everything like that. I like Kawhi a lot. I just want to see him be healthy.
Just want to see him play, man.
Right? Exactly. I just want to see him be healthy and play. Because then he can just shut all these haters like me up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, one guy that's, I guess, borderline obsessed with shutting up haters now to the point where he has none is Anthony Edwards. And he's going to be leading that Minnesota Timberwolves team this year with a little bit more pressure on his shoulders. Of course, I mentioned earlier, Timberwolves went out and traded Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. At first, I was very confused as to why the Timberwolves made this trade. But, of course, they're doing it to, alleviate the new salary cap rules, get out of the second apron, and allow them to be able to, pay and keep some of their guys like Naz Reid, who we talked about on the last podcast, is, one of the most reliable six-man options out there, knockdown shooter. But, yeah, Anthony Edwards is going to have a very elevated role. And, Edwards he's been in a lot of conversations this offseason that I don't think that he's proven he should be in yet. And, I guess this is a prove-it year for him. If he's the guy that everyone thinks that he is, then he's going to keep the Timberwolves in a good position. Of course, Julius Randle's still dealing with his injury that kept him out at the end of last year, so he's not going to be ready at the very start of the season. But, key addition. Dante DiVincenzo is one of the best shooters in the league right now. So
he is lights out.
Yeah.
I was so mad that he started doing really well shooting after he left the Warriors.
Yep.
Because I was watching last year. That was good. I like that. That was good for him.
Yeah, and he's going to be a key addition. They traded up to get Rob Dillingham in the draft, and I think that they're priming him to take over from Mike Conley once he hangs it up. So we're going to see some good production out of him as well. You added a guy like Joe Ingles to be a good bench vet, and I think that this team, even if they got a little bit worse getting rid of Karl Anthony Towns, I think they're still a good team. I think they'll still be a top 4 team in the West. But the problem comes in the playoffs. As good as Anthony Edwards is, we know that Rudy Gobert is a dropper in the playoffs defensively, and we know that Julius Randle is a dropper in the playoffs offensively. So we're going to have to see what happens with them. I don't think that they make the same Western Conference Finals run that they did last year. But like I said, a lot of that pressure is going to fall right on Ant's shoulders. And, I'm a fan of his, so I'm excited to see what he does to either confirm the praise that he's getting or give the haters something to gnaw at for all off season.
Yeah, and we've talked. So the last 30 minutes or so, we've talked about all these star players in the Western Conference, and what these teams are adding, and trying to build these talented teams that can go and compete to make it to the finals. All of these players have been added just to stop this one man. DeAndre Jordan, his teammate by the name of Nikola Jokic.
Oh man!
In this little town called Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
They finished second last year, 57-25 for both of them. So I mean, you could say they finished first still. You added Dario Saric, free agent with the Warriors last year, and then you also add the heart and soul of the LA Clippers and Russell Westbrook. But you lose KCP, which I think is a big hit. I think it's a bigger hit than some people think. Just because they're like, oh, KCP, wasn't he a role player? No, he was a very important player to that Nuggets team. Very talented at that as well. He ended up at the Magic, I think, right?
Yep.
And you also lost Reggie Jackson to the Sixers. If you've got Jokic, you're making the playoffs. So I think your floor is the 6th seed. And if Jamal Murray can play better than he did the last couple months, outside of his epic playoff series against the Lakers, if he can play like that for most of the season, I could see them easily being back at the number 2, number 3 spot. I say this, I hope it doesn't happen, but I do think Jokic could be in the running for another MVP award.
Brother, man.
Tell me about it.
Give it a break.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks. No. As much as I hate to say it, I think it's going to happen just because the whole NBA world is freaking out about big men right now for some reason. But I just don't think they can top the team you are about to talk about.
Yeah, man. All of this offseason talk is futile when you look at the team that had by far the best offseason out of any NBA team, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just 2 years ago, they were bottom feeders. They were a team that got joked on, sending out fake players pretty much to go out there and tank and try to get more draft capital and get some talented players on the team. And now here we are. Last season they end up as the 1 seed, and they didn't stop there. They pushed the dial and said, let's get stronger. And they already won the offseason when they got rid of Josh Giddey, because frankly Josh Giddey was just holding back the amount of production that they were able to play on the court. That's why he got benched in the playoffs. But the fact go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think another reason that was big for him is just the outside drama that is now gone from the team. It's all been proven. It's all been like settled or proven innocent or whatever. But still, the drama for a while was a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry. Continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. Getting rid of Josh Giddey is already a positive, but the fact that you were able to turn Josh Giddey into Alex Caruso, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, that you can stick next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's already a top-tier perimeter defender, who you can stick next to Lou Dort, who's also a top-tier perimeter defender.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy. But then it doesn't stop there, because they go out and they add Isaiah Hartenstein from the New York Knicks. They signed him to a 4-year deal, and that makes them a whole lot scarier. I mean, you're able to now go out there with a starting lineup of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, your choice of Caruso or Dort at the 2, which, I mean, you're winning either way. Jalen Williams at the 3, Chet Holmgren at the 4, Isaiah Hartenstein at the 5. That's a scary, scary starting 5 on both offense and defense. You know, you got Shai, who all of us unanimously picked to be our preseason MVP choice. A guy who can go out there and consistently give you 31 points per game while dishing out 7 assists. And that was when he was passing the nobodies. Now he has a whole starting 5 of caliber, like starting caliber players to pass to. You have Jalen Williams, who had a really, really good end of the season. I think he's going to ascend himself to be a consistent 22, 23 point per game scorer. Of course, you have Chet Holmgren, who's now moving back to his natural position that he played in high school and college at the power forward, having him stretch the floor, get a, being able to use his size to his advantage. Then you have Isaiah Hartenstein, who, he's not a guy that's going to go out there and give you 10 points, but he's a guy that's going to go out there and give you 10 assists, go out there and give you 10 offensive rebounds, not even mentioning the defensive aspect that he provides you. And then you look at the bench. You have either Caruso or Dort on the bench. You still have Cason Wallace. You still have the other Jalen Williams. You still have Isaiah Joe, who's a knockdown three-point shooter. You still have Aaron Wiggins. This team has gone from a joke to one of the deepest teams in basketball and one of the best defensive teams in basketball. And I think that they're the team to beat in the West. My expectation is that they're going to be a 1 seed. My expectation is that they're going to win 60-plus games. And my expectation is that they're going to go to the NBA Finals. I think this team is ready. I think that Shai is ready as a leader. And the scariest part is they still have a buttload of draft picks that they can use to trade for a star.
It's crazy. If they find themselves at the deadline, they're like, this guy is over here getting floated around in rumors. He'd fit well here. Yeah, thank you. 3 picks, whatever. I don't need him.
And you mentioned it earlier. Let's say that the Bucks have another subpar year and Giannis asks out. What's stopping the Oklahoma City Thunder from saying, okay, here's 7 first-round picks. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. And you throw, Hartenstein in it or whatever, so they get a player.
It's scary. It's really scary.
Then I don't even want to imagine what the Thunder would be like with Giannis.
Oh,
that's like guaranteed championships in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
The amount of offensive scoring and then also just the amount of, I think, holding teams to 80 points a game.
Yeah, the Thunder are going to be a team that a lot of people are going to consider league breaking. I think their teams are going to struggle to look for an answer for them. So it's going to be exciting basketball in OKC, which is something they haven't had in a while.
It is. It's going to be very exciting for Oklahoma City. I almost said Kansas City. Oklahoma City. It's going to be exciting for all these teams if you're not one of the bad teams. Quick before we sign off for the evening, who is a sleeper pick for you? It's for the title this year.
Sleeper pick for the title.
I know you said the Thunder, aside from the Thunder, Celtics, Nuggets, things like that. What's a sleeper team for you?
I think I'm gonna double down to my hot take earlier, and I'm gonna say the Memphis Grizzlies, man. I think that the Grizzlies are really primed to make a deep run. I think they have all the tools needed for that type of run. I think they kind of remind me of those Jimmy Butler Heat teams that went to the finals. You just got a lot of good defenders. You got Jaren Jackson and Zach Edey manning the paint. You got Marcus Smart on the perimeter. Then you just have Ja Morant. Ja Morant's a superstar. I think that people forget that Ja Morant's a superstar. I'm sick of seeing people put Ja Morant's names in conversations with guys that he was better than last year and will continue to be better than. Ja Morant is not in Trae Young conversations. Ja Morant is in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander conversations, and I'm ready for him to prove it again.
Okay, you're here first. He's spicy on that thing. Man. Love it. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna go with the Timberwolves actually. I do like the Grizzlies pick, but I don't want to be samesies. So I'm gonna go with the Timberwolves because I think they absolutely got a shot to do it again this year, especially if Anthony Edwards proves it this year, like we are all hoping he does.
Mm-hmm.
I think the loss of Cat actually will help a little bit in that you don't run a two big man lineup.
Yeah.
You can just focus on having one big man and give that 4 to more consistently to a guy like Naz Reid,
Mm-hmm.
or like Julius Randle when he gets healthier, things like that, guys like that. And I'm excited to see what they do, and I really do hope that they can make a run at it.
For sure.
But that is gonna do it. A full NBA preseason or NBA season preview with Jayden Simmons, host of the Hoop Culture Podcast. Be sure to catch the podcasts over on our Phantom Sports Podcast channel on YouTube. I will link it here in the description. Jayden, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, mainly that I just need to touch up on my basketball knowledge or my NBA knowledge. Thinking that Pascal Siakam is still on the Raptors. But I will see you in the next video that you can get in.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. And all of you guys who haven't seen our full predictions video that we did on the Hoop Culture episode, but it is also a clip on our main YouTube page. Go check it out. We go through all of our picks for every award this season. And there's a couple of little spicy takes on that, I will say. One of them has to do with a childhood game, if you know what I'm talking about. But I will see you guys later. Peace.